Now that we have our vehicle working with some physics, how do we get this vehicle moving? I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because we've gone through it in a previous tutorial, and this is just meant to be kind of a recap of things. So the first thing I need to do is remember that I need to attach a script to this, the script that uses code that tells it how to behave. I already created an empty script here, so why don't I just rename this the player, my keyboard will work, player controller. Now, here's a common error to be aware of. I just named this player controller in Unity, but if I look at the inspector, notice what the name of this script is. It's still called new behavior script. These names need to match. One thing I like to do is just to click on my name and copy it. So now when I open up my script and I see Visual Studio opening, it opened on my other monitor. Let me just let it finish and pull it over here. I'm just going to take this new behavior script name and paste the name I typed previously. And I didn't actually highlight everything correctly, but there we go, player controller. So now I have this script, and if I save it and go back into Unity, it's going to take a sec to update, and now player controller is the right name. So how do I get this vehicle moving? Let's remind ourselves of what we need to do. I, first of all, need to set some variables that are going to be things that will hold the information I use to travel. I'm going to create a public float horizontal input, it's hard to type while talking, and a public float speed. Let's remember what these words mean. Public means that I get to see this variable in Unity's inspector. So anything that has this player controller attached to it, I want to attach it to my vehicle. Now, when I go and take a look at this player controller script, if I save it, I should be able to see some information being public now, which is viewable in Unity, the horizontal input and speed. Let's say I change speed to private, or even left it blank, which is the same thing as saying private, actually, if you want to save a bit of time, and I save it, and I take a look back in Unity, this variable is now hidden from me in Unity. So including public is really helpful because it allows us to actually add and change these values when we're not in the script itself, which kind of saves a step. So some of our information, our horizontal input actually should just be something that we view and we can't change because this is something that Unity is going to tell us. So technically having this as public is not the right idea. So I'm going to make it private, but I still want to be able to see it. How do I make it so I can see something when it's private? Well, here's the trick. I'm going to use these squared off brackets. And I'm going to type in something called serialize field. What this does is it tells Unity the thing below it is going to be shown in Unity even though I can't or I don't want to be able to edit it and change it. So this horizontal input is now viewable even though it's private and not viewable by other things. And technically I can edit this here still, but I'm just going to leave it alone. I still want to see it. This is the right way that I'd want to kind of set this up to view at this point in time. So how about our code? I'm just going to copy and paste this in for now. In my update method, I want to be able to set my horizontal input to something. I'm going to get rid of this start. We don't need anything here. And I spelled horizontal wrong. So let's make sure that these variables have the same name. Horizontal input equals get axis horizontal. How do I know what axis I'm looking for? Now, I know the problem here is that when I copy and paste information from Word, the editing gets a little bit off, so the spelling's actually right. Notice that I had to change these quotation marks, which is really obnoxious, but it's something that we have to work around sometimes. So, but what is this referring to? Input get axis horizontal. Well, let me show you. This is something we haven't seen before. If I go back to my project in Unity, go Edit and Project Settings, I have a whole bunch of information in here about Audio Editor Graphics and Input Manager. This is responsible for setting all the inputs. And if you ever want to change which key triggers our get axis horizontal, you can pop this open and see. Notice here, horizontal is the name that I'm accessing here. And inside of it, it says the name and what are the buttons for negative and positive directions and alternatives. So left and right buttons or the A and D either of these controller configurations will work with this. You can also set some gravity, the dead zones, and sensitivity and other things, but don't worry about that right now, although notice that there are axes and joystick, things for controllers you can consider doing a little bit later. But I could technically in my project change my left and right to other keys here if I wanted to. Now for right now, I just want to make this track move forward and back, so I actually want this to be the vertical, meaning if I look back under, once it finishes loading here, my project settings, this is going to be my vertical, meaning up and down, S and W, forward and backwards basically. And so I have my horizontal input, get that vertical, and now I'm also going to make sure that I move my vehicle by the amount that is set here. It's having some issues with this. It needs to be lowercase. Perfect. And let's remind ourselves what this does. This does. Transform means change its position. Translate means move it. Vector 3 right means move it vector 3 by, well, I can't point to it, but it says shorthand for writing vector 3 100, meaning move it on the x-axis. I want to multiply this by the current input I'm getting from the controller, or the keyboard in this case. I want to even it out based on different frame rates, and I want to multiply it by the speed that my vehicle is allowed to travel. So I'm going to save this and jump back into Unity. Check my car, and I want to make sure that I actually have a speed that's not 0. Let's make it a nice small speed just to see things move really slowly here. And now when I press play, and I press forward and backwards, I see that it's traveling. Cool. So we got a little bit of movement. Nice little recap of how we get some basic movement going on. In the next tutorial, I'll remind you about the camera.